Hello, and welcome to the ACF Chef's Table Forum. Before we dive into today's webinar on the evolution and interplay of pizza styles, we'd like to thank Fontanini for sponsoring today's session. Crafted from authentic Italian recipes using premium ingredients and traditional seasonings, Fontanini Italian Meats helps operators build menus that reflect their passion for delicious food. For those unfamiliar with the American Culinary Federation, we're the leading organization for culinary professionals offering education, certification, and a community for chefs and food service leaders. If you're not yet a member, today's webinar is a great example of the valuable resources we offer. Today, we're joining Stephanie Swan of Modernist Cuisine for an exciting and delicious journey through the history and evolution of pizza styles. Feel free to ask questions using the Q&A function at any time. Let's get started by sharing where you're tuning in from in the chat. I'm Christopher Tanner, ACF's Executive Director, and I'm excited to be here with all of you today. All right, let's meet today's presenter. Stephanie Swan is the publisher of Modernist Cuisine and their in-house publishing department, the Cooking Lab. For the last decade, she has traversed the globe to help the team research bread, pastries, and pizzas from every imaginable angle. Stephanie has met with experts in baking, milling, agricultural, production, history, fermentation, equipment, and ingredient manufacturers and beyond. Stephanie is an ambassador for Women in Pizza, highlighting the amazing and inspiring pizziolas from around the globe, and the moderator for Women in Pizza panels in the US, Canada, and UK. She was recently included in the PMQ Pizza Magazine's 20 Pizza Influencers for 2024. Last year, Stephanie had the opportunity to judge multiple categories in Las Vegas at the Pizza Expo and in Naples, Italy at the Caputo Cup. I'm a little jealous about that, by the way. At this time, I'm excited to pass this over. Stephanie, take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris, for that wonderful introduction. And yes, I've eaten a lot of pizza in the last 11 years that I've been working with Modernist Cuisine. And thank you so much for ACF for the honor to talk about pizza styles with all of you wonderful people joining in today. So I am going to share my screen and get us going. And I apologize in advance. This will make you hungry, which, you know, everyone loves pizza. So why not start the day with a slice? I will be talking about the evolution and interplay of pizza styles. And feel free to follow me on Instagram at @swan and our Modernist Cuisine tags, Modernist Pizza, as well as Mod Cuisine. And let's see. Why am I not going forward? There we go. So we are based in Seattle, Washington, and this is a look at the lab where we are about 20 people, including chefs, food scientists, designers, editors, photographers, everyone we need on our team to make our books. And speaking of books, these are our latest and greatest titles since 2010, releasing Modernist Cuisine. And we're going to be talking mostly about Modernist Pizza, which came out right around the pandemic. We self-publish all of our books, and we're in 9 languages, or 8 languages year to date. A little bit about the specs of Modernist Pizza. We traveled about 100,000 miles as a team together, ate over 800 pizzas around the world. And we continue to look at pizza from a variety of angles, even while the book has been published. We also publish our books in multiple languages. So we had to publish our book in Italian because of the journey of pizza, and then also French, German, and Spanish. If you look at the book itself, it's actually broken out by 3 books plus a kitchen manual. We're going to spend a lot of time in between the fundamentals and technique chapters, and a little bit of travel, since I did have the opportunity to talk about pizza history at the last ACF conference in New Orleans. We are researchers, so one of the things that we love to pull together are data, facts. While we were looking at pizza in particular, we were looking at over 900 plus dough recipes, performing experiments in our lab, looking at a variety of cookbooks in multiple languages, and creating our own recipes, baking pizza after pizza, and collecting data points from hydration to fat content, and also all of the aspects I'm going to talk about when we talk about style. So styles of pizza is a discussion point that a lot of us have that are pizza nerds and that are just passionate about pizza itself. And one of the ways that we analyze pizza ourselves was looking at three different factors. We looked at crumb, rim, and topping ratio. The options for pizza styles are finite given the relatively simple components that I just mentioned, but they can be manipulated in so many different ways. The most central element is the crust, its thickness and its texture. Is it crispy? Is it soft? These usually make a pizza style distinct. Whether or not there's a noticeable rim is another factor, or whether or not the pizza may be baked in a pan or maybe baked on the hearth of the oven. We think about the softness of a crust like a Neapolitan or a thick bready crust of a New York square slice. And then of course you add in the ratio of cheese and toppings as players as well. And then sauce also applied makes this a distinct style. As I mentioned, crumb range, you can see a variety of different types of pizzas from the thinnest to the thickest. And when we look at rim, we're looking at the cornicione, which is the very edge of your pizza, and then also topping ratio. Crumb range, we show the range of the interior crumb from thin, some of them are even non-existent, like a bar pie or a tavern style, to very thick with pizza gourmet at the outer end of the spectrum. Within the range, you also look at the quality of the how the crumb varies, whether it's open or tight. The rim range, the variety of rims doesn't quite correspond to the range of the crumbs, though pizza with large rims do tend to have an open crumb. Neapolitan is a really good example of this. And then topping ratio. Amount of toppings vary by style and pizza size. Some sturdier crusts can support more. And we also look at topping weights by the style. So knowing what your pizza dough can support ahead of time. Here you see some of the differences. You know, a thin crust is only crust, no crumb. A medium crust has both crumb, bottom crust, and a rim. And then the bread-like pizzas, which very simply have an interior crumb structure, light and airy. And you also look at some styles like a Neapolitan, which tend to droop, and then others that actually hold a plank, like a New York style. Here's how we kind of identify the different styles within modernist pizza, where we grouped them together when we found that there were a lot of similarities and some things that were very different. And as Christopher mentioned, you know, we were traveling the globe to look at pizza not only historically, but also in innovation and in the current state of affairs. So we are looking at thin crust in multiple locations. So when I talk about thin crust, you know, we're looking at Brazil, we're looking at Chicago, we're looking at St. Louis, and then we're also looking at the bar and tavern style, which you'll find down the eastern seaboard as well as in the Midwest. Some of the things that we look at when we're talking about style is toppings don't necessarily make a style. Hawaiian pizza is not a style. It is a topping combination. But the fun thing about Hawaiian pizza, it's actually not Hawaiian, not Hawaiian in origin. It is a Canadian creation. Provence also isn't enough. Nobody would say Thomas Keller, for example, makes Yout style food, even though his flagship restaurant, French Laundry, is in that town. Neapolitan rules are laid out by the AVPN that specify the preparation process and other attributes. Many of these so-called traditional rules seem to serve the trade organization and sponsor manufacturers more so than the pizza itself. So who gets to determine pizza styles? Obviously, there are a lot of lists and media that are emerging and talking about pizzas that are coming out into the world in a variety of areas. And we continue to look and decide if if the pizza has left its origination, is it now a style because you can find it outside Detroit, for example? You can find Detroit style in Florida, and other ways that you can look at how a style has originated and left. There's also styles that have no real origin story, but are kind of mythological. We'll talk more about that. And then there's also some styles that we've grown up on that are just things that are connected to you. And I love this one about Quad City, which we'll talk about. And Quad Cities never really left Quad City. So would we call that a style? Not really, since it's continued to stay in its point of origin. When it comes to sauce, that also matters a lot. Light, medium, heavy saucing for different styles. How much sauce should you put on your pizza? Sometimes personal preference can play a role. There are some clear lines too about what works best for a particular kind of pizza. For example, you would never put the same amount of sauce on a deep dish pizza and a Neapolitan pizza. Large amounts of sauce can result in a wet, soggy crust. Too much sauce also means the toppings won't cling, so they slide off when you pick up a slice. Even if you fold the slice to keep the toppings in place, the crust may become wet and gummy and unpleasant to eat. Sauce does not get a lot of attention, but it also plays such a crucial role in adding flavor and moisture. We're not sure why more pizzaiolias don't devote the care to making it the best possible. We're going to start off with one particular style at a time. So we're going to talk about Neapolitan. And we love to look at an exploded diagram. So we're looking at a finished pizza at the bottom. And then you're looking at the dough, the sauce, proportionate cheese. And then for this particular, it's a margarita with mozzarella, basil, and oil drizzled on top. As I mentioned during our travels, we've found a variety of Neapolitan style pizzas in and outside of Italy. And so this is just a shot of a variety of margaritas, for example, that we would classify as Neapolitan that were found anywhere from South America to Europe to the US to its origin in Naples, and how they all are similar in the way that they are made. A few differences, but it's a way that you can see that the style has continued to stay as it was from its birthplace. One of the newer inventions of pizza styles that would be qualifying in the Neapolitan category is Canotto style. Canotto means dingy pizza, and it was actually trademarked, patented by Carlo Sammarco when he opened his restaurant, Sammarco 2.0, in the outskirts of Naples in 2018. It also created a new flour, Caputo, which is known for the 00 pizza flour, created a Nuvola flour specifically for this type of pizza, which you can see it's also nicknamed the U-boat because you have this very open cornicione, a lot more dough on around the edges, and a few places that have served this that you see photos of here, not only Carlo Sammarco, but Tin Diego Vitiliano in Naples, I Massinelli in Caserta, Dalmata in Paris. And we would also classify Una Pizza Napolitana, Anthony Mangieri's pizza, as Canotto-like. Does Neapolitan pizza require 00 flour? So this is something that comes up quite frequently when it comes to making Neapolitan pizza. The type of flour that we saw most used around the world was 00. Some pizza makers swear by it, but they also use it for other styles. While we had successful results using this flour and recommend it for our Neapolitan pizza, we want to stress that there are many flours besides 00 that can be used to make outstanding pizza. I actually live up here in Seattle, and there's a mill, Cairn Springs flour, which makes a beautiful Neapolitan pizza dough. The Trailblazer flour is one of my favorites. So some people swear by 00 because they believe that the label makes a smaller particle size, which in theory guarantees a superior pizza because a smaller particle means better water absorption. but that's not the case and points to a misinterpretation of what the 00 designation actually means. Artisan pizza, again, you see the built pizza on the bottom, you see the layers on top. Artisan really is found throughout the US. Some of the highlights that I have here, Raza in Jersey City, Sarah Minnick in Portland, Oregon at Lovely 50/50. You can see the attention to the details of the toppings and really a creative element to preparation of the dough, which could be sourdough, and how they care to place the toppings and the style. Some of the originators of this or artisan really are, from the California area. San Francisco had a contingent of Italians that settled during the late 19th century, but early pizzerias didn't gain a foothold and spread across the region the same way until decades later. LA gave birth to an artisanal movement that was much more popular and widespread. Two iconic pillars of this early pizza scene are Nancy Silverton, Wolfgang Puck, and we wouldn't be remiss if we didn't talk about Alice Waters, also making the artisan pizza up in SF around the same time. Most recently, San Francisco and LA have become a destination for pizzas made by Tony Giominani, Laura Meyer in Berkeley, Leah Scurto in Windsor, Justin De Leon in LA, Juliana Miller also in the Los Angeles area, and Roxana Gillipat, just to name a few that are carrying out this artisan style in a beautiful way. Next, we'll move into New York style, which is a popular style, especially when it comes to the New York slice. Here are a variety of New York styles from Portland, Oregon, all the way across to New York. And one of the key things that we talk about with New York style is the low hydration typically found in American cheese. Here we have a thin crust pizza. So you see the very cracker thin look of the crust built up with sauce, cheese, and then the toppings. We found this style to be prevalent in Rome, as well as Marta in New York, and on the shore. This is where we really found a variety from the bar, tavern, St. Louis, Brazil, Rome, finding the similarities of what this thin crust is, and a lot of them also were part of the American cheese movement. Low moisture mozzarella, either whole milk or part skim, is the most commonly used cheese on pizza made outside of Italy. That's part of the reason why the term pizza cheese is frequently used to label this cheese. It's quite different from Italian fresh mozzarella. It's much lower in moisture, so it doesn't need to be drained. You can buy it in log form sliced or shredded. Most pizzerias buy it shredded for convenience, but pizzolios who want to control the size of their shred buy logs and shred it themselves. Logs are marginally cheaper, and but you still need to use labor to shred the cheese. You also have the New York Square. New York Square can goes by quite a few different names. You'll see here the New York Square could be a Sicilian, could be the New York Square, could be just the square, and also a grandma style, which we'll talk a little bit more about. The commonality with this is that it is baked in a pan. Then we have a style that's really still in Italy, but is slowly moving its way out of northern Italy, mostly in the Lombardy, Verona region. And this is pizza gourmet, very different in style, still having the base to the toppings on top, but you find it with very creative chef-like ingredients. We've had it with quail. We've had it with this top one on the right is shrimp. And it's really taking the flavor combination of the chef and parsing out the individual pieces to showcase the one bite of enjoying all flavors in each slice. So much more meticulous. Some of the places that we highlight with Pizza Gourmet are La Calandria, Itili, Serrani, Dry, Sapore, styles also found in Paris. Then we get into the deep dish. So here you see more of like a finished pan style pizza with a very pressed in crust, more biscuit-like. And then you have your toppings um, and sauce on the very top of most deep dish, sometimes with sprinkled cheese as well. The deep dish actually is found not just in Chicago. Deep dish has moved outside of Chicago from all across the US. I had the pleasure of having deep dish in Tokyo. You could find a similar deep dish in Buenos Aires. So the deep dish, as we well know, isn't just a Chicago thing. And even more so, there are many different styles in Chicago, which is why we just call this deep dish. One of the key things with cutting deep dish is that you are pulling through a lot of your toppings. Serrated knife usually doesn't quite go through the diameter of the entire pizza. So one of the tricks that we found was using your Thanksgiving electric knife, which really makes a nice subtle cut all the way through and through the layers of your deep dish pizza. Next, we have the Detroit style, which is one of my favorite styles that has continuously moved outside of Detroit. And you see this also baked in the pan. One of the things that's different and unique about Detroit style pizza is you typically have the sauce on top. So you see what they call racing stripes on the cheese layer or on the toppings layer. Some of our favorite Detroit style pizzas we found not just in Detroit, but also in LA, in Chicago, and Laura Meyer out in Berkeley is doing a fantastic job in this area. So as I mentioned, Detroit style, typically the bases are par baked. So you have your proof dough, par bake, add your cheese, bake your pizza, and then you sauce it later. One of the key things with your beautiful Detroit pizzas is this marvelous frico on the side, which is a cheese layer that basically hardens and creates this kind of dragon's tail swirl on the side of your pizza, which is the use of Wisconsin brick. So Wisconsin brick cheese is a high fat content cheese, and it's a cow's milk, semi-hard. With excellent maltability. It's a cross between a cheddar and they say a Limburger. The longer you let it age, the more towards the Limburger stage of complex and pungent you have. It's an ivory to pale yellow in color. The younger brick cheese has more of a mild and nutty taste. We love Frico. One of the things that we did in our book is actually create Frico slices that you can add to any type of slice. So if you have a New York style, you can encase it in Frico. Altaglio pizza, which is kind of well known with Gabriele Bonci and Pizzerium in Rome, but it's also traveled outside of Rome. And I think both Detroit style as well as Altaglio have become, in the last few years, bigger and further reach outside of their origin stories. Triple Beam in LA. We actually just have a new place here in Seattle that just opened called Pizza Ruffin, and an awesome place called State of Mind in Los Altos, California, all serving amazing Altaglio. This is a high hydration dough, also still in a pan. The word Altaglio means by the cut. And so you cut to order. So your pizza is weighed and sliced, and that equates to the amount that you pay for your slice. It's also typically topped post bake. So you reheat the sauce layer and then reposition all of the toppings after baking. Here's some beautiful Altalia that we found in Philly and also obviously at Bonci and a couple of other places in Rome. One of the fun things that we decided to do while we were working on styles is deconstruct styles. And so here we show some of the types of dough, so your base that you make for a particular style and how you can mix it up. So whether you're making a New York style pizza, you can actually use a focaccia dough pressed out like a round, like you would do your normal New York style pizza. And it comes up with a little more airiness, but the style is still kind of crossed over. Same with Neapolitan. There's some other fun things you can do with a Neapolitan pizza using a different type of dough. One of my favorites is Detroit style. I switch this out all the time where I'm doing a high hydration, sometimes a New York style with a tighter crumb, focaccia dough with the larger alveoli. All of these are fun ways to create new and unique experiences for a style of pizza. I also just wanted to throw in here calzone. Calzone, while it's not a pizza style, is something that's very similar to something you'll find in a lot of pizzerias here in the States. You won't necessarily find a calzone in Italy, but you'll find something like it, which is the pizza fritta. If you travel to Italy, especially into Naples, I highly recommend you get a pizza fritta. It's a great experience. It's probably the origination of truly what pizza was. And it's great to travel and walk around. There's some really fun shops you can get it. It's also a late night food. You also have Montanara, pizza Montanara, which is fried first and lightly fried first, and then in the oven, placed in your wood-fired oven. Keste and Don Antonio in New York are two of my favorite places for finding Montanara outside of Italy. Focaccia di Recco, same, a different style and origination in a different place. And then the pizza al Campofranco, which I threw in here because it is almost Easter. It's a lot like an Easter pie for the Italians. Very bread-like and slices, almost like a deep dish pizza. A few of the areas that I feel like a lot of people don't know about, which is here in Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires is home to a very rich pizza tradition, owing to the large Italian population in that city. We found numerous types of pizza served there that haven't made it necessarily out of Buenos Aires and at least to the States. There are some people that are pushing the envelope right now. The Fogazetta in particular and Fogaza. I know that OG Papa Fern in New York is really trying to elevate and bring this type of style of pizza to New York. We ate and shared we ate and share characteristics with thick crusted pan-baked pizza we found in Chicago, as well as some cheeseless pizzas that were found that were fed to soccer fans in the La Boca neighborhood. Canchera hawkers would bring stacks of pizza to the stadium, set up a table, and sell it cold, just like our slice houses. Buenos Aires is also home to faina. Faina is a dense flatbread made from chickpea flour that's also sold and eaten with pizza. So you actually stack the faina on top of your pizza slice, as shown here. It's kind of a slightly thinner and drier polenta. Some Italian pizzas that are not pizza, like I talked about the Campofranco, pizza rustica, which is an interesting mix, more quiche-like. Pizza bianco and pizza rosa, which you find mostly in bakeries, not in pizzerias, like the Rascioli Bakery, for example, in Rome. More closely like a focaccia. The pizzetta, which is a smaller pizza, typically a bar side snack. And then there's a double crunch pizza, which is Renato Bosco, who is in the Veneto region in Italy. And it's really a sandwich. So as I mentioned, we've traveled the globe. I'm going to call out a few things that we found in a variety of these areas. And we're also going to talk about some styles that are still as what I would call regional styles that haven't quite made it outside of their origin. So we spent a lot of time traveling the globe to a variety of places to look at pizza in situ. We spent time looking at over 200 pizzerias and even more after weeding out. So I'd say we were closer to like 500 to 1,000 pizzerias once everything was done. We looked at guides, we looked at lists. We really wanted to make sure that when we did arrive and meet with these pizzolos, that they had the opportunity to talk about their pizzas and really have everything up to their highest expectation. Here's just a breakdown of a lot of the places that we hit and the styles and of pizza and other interesting factoids. We also, like I mentioned, we had the opportunity to meet the originators of quite a few styles. To the left is Franco Pepe in Caserta, who is elevating, I think, and making the best Neapolitan pizza. Gabriele Bonci, which I mentioned, who is creating a beautiful high hydration dough, and El Taglio, Laura Meyer, who is doing a wonderful job with the pan pizzas from Detroit Style to Grandma, also offering round pies, New York styles. And then you have La Calandria, the Ayamo brothers, Massimiliano Ayamo, with Pizza Gourmet. So obviously Naples, we had to go to Naples in order to find out more about the Neapolitan style. As I mentioned, the AVPN, which is kind of the guidance of the gospel of Neapolitan pizza, really has a lot of operations outside of Italy, even more so. They're found in Asia. I have a woman in Egypt who is one of the first certified. So they're all over the world. The true Neapolitan pizza, as they say it, probably wasn't the Neapolitan pizza that we have in the past, with some very high quality tweaks. And we still have quite a few historic pizzerias in Naples that we can take a look at. But I'd say a lot of them have become more tourist destinations than the best Neapolitan pizza you will have in that city. Rome, one of my favorite things about going to Rome is looking at pizza going outside of the birth of Neapolitan and looking what they're creating. Some similarities as a New York slice culture with Pizza Al Taglio. The pizza was definitely crispier on the bottom, more like what we would consider our artisan style pizza now. And then also just talking to Gabriele Bonci about how he looks at pizza and the techniques and the high-end ingredients that he's using for his takeaway pizza in Rome. So when we went to Rome, we asked ourselves, what is Roman pizza? Because we had looked at a variety of different types of pizza styles and couldn't really find one that I would call is synonymous with that city. So instead, most of the Roman styles that we find have been rolled into a variety of pizzas like the artisan style, El Taglio, and the thin crust. There's also something called Pizza Romana. Pizza Romana was created in 2001 by Corrado Di Marco. He actually created a flour to use for this specific style. And if you read about Pizza Romana, basically says you can't make the style of pizza without his flour. So we find Pizza Romana more as a marketing tool to differentiate yourself, but really no clear style attributes. Northern Italy, we found a variety of experimentation and innovation outside of Naples. Also looking at cold fermentation, which was not something that pizzolas were doing in Naples. And also infusing different types of flours, also flavors, and really getting creative with how they perceived pizza, which was much different than what you would find in the Neapolitan world. And then, like I talked about, going to Sao Paulo, I thought this was a very interesting place that a lot of people don't talk about, which is the Sao Paulo capital of pizza. and Brazilians putting a variety of things on their pizzas, including mayonnaise, which, we just had celebrated ranch dressing day the other day. So, Americans love to put ranch dressing or as a dip on the side. But I found having pizza is strictly a dinner thing in Sao Paulo. You ate with a knife and fork, much like the Italians do with Neapolitan. And so we didn't find any place that served pizza for lunch. And they also thought that was a very interesting thing to even think about. Castellos, which is one of the places they admire, and other pizzerias had pizzas dedicated to Castellos, which I also thought was a really interesting way for pizza to continue to grow. Um, then you have Buenos Aires. We found a lot of cheese in Buenos Aires. There's a lot of slice shops. And we found some very strange ways of placing whole olives without pits that basically just rolled off your pie. But it's a very highly populated Italian ancestry in Argentina, which makes for a lot of Italians in Buenos Aires making amazing pizza. One of the things that we learned about Buenos Aires is the cachapuri. Now, cachapuri we had never heard of cachapuri until going to Sao Paulo. It's made from milk. We originally thought maybe it's like a mayonnaise, but it's actually a mild flavor processed cheese that's piped onto pizzas, holding its form while baking. Sometimes it's piped into the cornicione. You kind of picture something like the consistency of Cheese Whiz, but it's a little whiter in color. And the Palestanos love this. The origin story is that it's an American cheese in a milk, that it's in the Requelajo or creamy cheese family, so it's spreadable rather than sliceable. It's often extruded. Because it's heat sensitive, cacciapuri is typically applied after baking. It was invented in 1911 by an Italian immigrant named Mario Silvestrini. He had it for the first time on his first trip to Brazil, and according to the makers, the name cacciapuri means excellent in the Tupi language spoken by the Tupinamba people of Brazil. Like American cheese in Provel, it is a processed cheese and that thus can't legally be labeled cheese in the United States. Tokyo, Japan is rather unlikely place for amazing pizza. Rice, not wheat, has been long the staple, but until recently, cheese was seen as rotten milk with the unappealing texture of wax. Many Japanese were then lactose intolerant, but when David Chang talked on an episode of Ugly Delicious that Tokyo had some of the best pizza in the world, we looked at it as a challenge and we had to visit. We found amazing Neapolitan style pizza, including margaritas and marinaras that were, in my taste palette, better than a lot of the pizzas that I had in Naples. They do have a unique marinara style where they're lightly sauced, but they use fresh garlic sliced on top and literally add a douse of olive oil before the bake. They also have this ritual of throwing a little salt into the oven prior to baking to clarify demons from the oven. And also just a great way to watch them as they put each pizza into the ovens. New York, of course, have to cover New York. We had to go and check out New York's styles. We did find a lot of great New York style pizza outside of New York. We also found some Neapolitan, some artisan, some Detroit style, and even some thin crust pizza. So a variety of pizzas are in abundance, obviously, in New York. We didn't find as much diversity as we thought we would find in sauces and cheeses, and but we did find that most of the New York pizzerias were definitely on the camaraderie side and referring us to other pizza places and really creating a strong community and network amongst themselves. New Haven, one of the places we found was not as wonderful as we had hoped. We had heard, obviously, I've experienced New Haven style since living in New York. But we did find that the history of the pizza in New Haven was fascinating, and hearing more from a gentleman called Colin Kaplan in New Haven and talking about coal fire and how it came to be was actually a really interesting way of looking at what we think was most likely closer to the original pizza, even more so than what you'll find in New York because of the coal fire. Here's some of those pizzas in the New Haven area, known for their clam pie. Chicago, I think one of the great things about Chicago was thinking about all the different types of pizza that are in Chicago, not just the deep dish. We did find that the deep dish themselves were quite hefty. One place told us it was 2 pounds of dough, 2 pounds of cheese, 2 pounds of sauce, and then whatever else you put in top. So if it's sausage, another 2 pounds. So quite a hefty slice. We also spent time looking at the history and finding out, if you listen to my pizza history talk, I talk about Alice May Redmond and how most likely she was one of the key people to create the deep dish pizza, the way that we see it at Uno and Due, with her background in making biscuits and the other Southern women that were working in the kitchens during this time. Detroit, we've really enjoyed learning more about brick cheese and watching the sauce go on after baking, and also connecting the American Auto parts with the reason why they say that the pan is the way that it is for Detroit pizzas. And then a couple just key regional US styles that are still in their regions. The New Jersey tomato pie, looking at sauce to cheese ratios, St. Louis pie, and the Provel cheese, which is one thing that really stands out on on St. Louis style, which is kind of a blend of cheddar, Swiss, and a smoked provolone. Old Forge, which I mentioned, which also proclaims they're the pizza capital of the world. Grandma style, which was originated, as I say, by King Umberto's in New York, out on Long Island, and the term's been adopted to describe square pan-baked pizzas in all kinds. So we did encounter some grandma styles that were baked in this way. And then we have Eddie's Pizza, who actually has a trademark for bar pie, and another pizza style that we find along the seaboard, bar pie. But all of the bar pies that we found, it was hard to equate them to something that was similar. Most of them were very, very different or unique to themselves. So creating one specific style of bar pie wasn't an easy thing to do. And then you have the Quad Cities pizza. Quad Cities is known for the taco pizza, as well as the party cut. Thank you so much for listening about styles. I'm really excited to be attending the ACF conference this year again, and I will be hosting an amazing panel with 3 women in the Las Vegas pizza scene. All 3 are working on different pizza styles. I think it'll be a really fun conversation, as well as Laura Meyer, who will be doing a demo at the ACF conference this year about pizza styles. So highly recommend you attend. And then if you want to listen more about our pizza, we've got a podcast that you can definitely jump on anytime. And we also have a couple of galleries. So if you want to see our photos in New Orleans or in La Jolla, please stop by. If you are an educator, I'll talk about this more at ACF, and please feel free to find me, but you can contact our donation website or email at the bottom, and we do provide nonprofit book donations. So if you're an educator, we are happy to supply books to you and love to continue to educate your teams.
Bethany, that was fantastic. I appreciate it. We do not have any questions, but I have some questions for you.
All right. Bring them
So
on.
obviously you and I talk about pizza. I think we had the last time we got on a call, we had like a 2 hour conversation about pizza. Um, so you mentioned Connecticut. So I lived in Connecticut for a while, and it's very interesting the pizza style that's there. And you were expecting something else. What were you expecting when you went there?
Um, so when we went to New Haven, I've actually, since I lived adjacent before, I'd been there numerous times, when I wasn't working on a pizza book. But one of the things that we found was that, while there's some originators, there's Pepe's, there's Sally's, um, there are quite a few places all on one street, which I think is also really interesting in New Haven, that you can hit them all in one time if you can get in time.
Very
Um,
much.
but we found that the coal fire, that a lot of the pizza that we had was overbaked. So from a necessity standpoint, almost to the point of burning. And that seemed to become an attribute that they all, were trying to succeed on. Adding clams to a already well cooked base, is a difficult thing, especially if you're adding whole clams. So there were things that we found that could be done better. But because I'm sure that they have been operating for quite a while and they have customers and they have people that expect things, um, we found that, like, with we have a New Haven clam pie in our book, but we did not follow the rules of what I would say everyone was doing in New Haven, because we felt like to have a successful clam pie, there are better ways to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that with the how things modify over time based on expectations, and I think interesting things with the more things that are out there. And I think for so long most people thought of when they think of pizza, they've always said New York pizza is the best pizza that's in the country because that's what it is. And almost to me, pizza is a national dish of the United States now because of the regional specialties. Would you say the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the wonderful thing about pizza is no matter where you go around the world, you can ask for it by name and everyone understands what it is. And there's not a lot of things that you can do the same for. Like, pizza is something that people understand. It might be a different style, but they understand pizza as pizza. Um, but I feel like the traveling of pizza continues to go from one place to the next. And I think that's what I really wanted to get out of, this presentation too for the listeners is, a lot of these origins start in one small town. They might become Main Street, USA, and all of a sudden that style has become of, one place to five places to 20 places still in within their city. But when someone from that city goes somewhere else, to Colorado, to Florida, to Phoenix, and they start making a change to that style or taking on their what they grew up on, origin, and making that pizza and calling it that pizza, you have to build that resonance to make it sustainable outside of that area too. So it's not to say that you can't find a variety of styles in a variety of places. It has to be something that actually has stayed as it is and continued to follow the same protocols. And I think that's the interesting thing with styles is, um, a lot of places will say, I was talking to Dan earlier today, and he had mentioned wanted to know if I had, Maryland style pizza, and that seems to be the constant thing. Is like it's Rhode Island style pizza, which is really grilled pizza, which is something that is kind of still just a Rhode Island thing. But could it be Greek pizza because that's another name for it? So there's all of these things that you can talk about, but the big thing is, does it follow the same protocols as it did, and is it still continuing on that way?
Yeah, it's interesting. Six. I was just in Columbus, Ohio, this past weekend, and they many people there will tout that they have their own style of pizza, and I've always kind of thought of it as the same as the bar pie or bar pizza that you find in Chicago,
Yeah.
and it's almost like a Midwestern pizza style more so than any particular city.
I mean, that was one of the hardest ones, bar and tavern, because you can find them in so many places. I mean, if you go to the Midwest and Chicago, Milwaukee, a lot of places were traced back to breweries that were trying to keep people in their bars,
Yeah.
decided to have little ovens in the back that the bar person could just pop in some pies, put them on the bar, and you would be able to have multiple beers now. So it would
Yeah, I'd say it
behoove.
soaks up the alcohol, right? So you got to drink.
Exactly. So it behooved the breweries to have something there for people to eat. And it was usually lower quality. You know, it might have been a couple bucks for an entire mini pie for yourself. It typically had a high salt level so that you were drinking more. It wasn't high ingredients. It was more of just sustenance.
Yeah.
And but then you would find places that were doing a nicer thing for a bar pie where they were using slightly better ingredients, maybe rolling it out thinner, maybe a larger size, um, but or cut differently. Like some were cut in squares, some were cut party cut, some were cut in like your traditional New York style. So the consistency there is just it's
Well,
not there.
the
It's
thing that drove me
crazy.
nuts, the thing that drove me nuts in New Haven is the randomness whenever they would slice the pizza. It's like they really didn't even care whatsoever what they were doing for slicing your pizza. Here, I'm the slice of pizza, eat it.
Yes, exactly. And so, that's where when you look at the trying to put styles into buckets, you have to find these defining terms, and sometimes it's not a defining term, and then you have to push them together into like a thin crust pizza because it makes sense for most.
It's interesting you say that because so in grad school, I went to Boston University for the gastronomy program. We studied history and sociology of food. And when you standardize cuisines, you have to have not only a number of styles that exist, a number of things that exist that people identify locally of what that is. You also have to standardize it in text, and then it's fully exportable as well. And to your point where you're saying earlier, so I think I found the best Detroit pizza, unfortunately, outside of Detroit here in Jacksonville, Florida. But that shows that that's why those styles are standardized because they have those characteristics.
And like with Detroit style pizza, I think that it's attainable. You don't have to have a specific oven per se. You do have to have a pan, but the pan can vary. It should be a dark pan. You can not use Wisconsin brick cheese if you don't want to. You can find some equivalencies. Um, but it's attainable in a way that you can do par bake. So more people can, create, 20 to 25 pies and then top them at service. So you can have something delicious that's more on a baked good side, but it has the pizza qualifications too.
Yeah, we actually have some people asking questions now, so I can go through some of these questions.
All
Uh,
right.
what was the most interesting topping you've discovered during your travels and research?
Um, so interesting topping on a good side or bad side could be
I want to hear the
both.
bad. I want to hear both, but
Um,
more so bad side. I want to hear that.
I mean, so there is this pizza style that I didn't mention here, which is it's found in Sweden, and it's called kebab pizza. It has left a little bit. There is a place in LA, but it's a very strange pizza where you have bananas sliced on it sometimes.
Gosh,
You have something that's like mayonnaise drizzled on top in circles with uh, salad. But the kebab pizza is just like what I say. It's kebab sliced on top of your salad and then drizzled with the mayo and then sometimes some tomatoes on top. To me, it's like drunk food. That's what I equate it to is like if I had too many beers, I want to go in and get a kebab pizza because it's going to soak up all of that. I'm going to feel horrible the next day. But I felt like that was really interesting to see the combination of flavors in a way similar to an open faced pita, basically, but the way that they push the envelope and decorate it and create the kebab pizza. And then you know, if you go to Malmo, for example, you'll see kebab pizza places, Copenhagen too, and Oslo, and it's quite a thing there, but it hasn't quite translated outside of there.
Right, next we got time for one or two more. When traveling, have you experienced any fusion pizza that's outstanding?
Definitely. I went to Seoul, Korea, and one of the things that I loved about going to Seoul, Korea was having something similar to like a Detroit style pizza, but with kimchi and pickling flavor nodes on top, light on cheese because most Asian countries, you know, as I mentioned, aren't as big on the cheese side. But just great flavor profiles with that crunch, and then also the base of the Detroit style. So I definitely will always remember that. And then, you know, barbecue. I mean, you'll find a lot of different meats created. I judge pizza as well, so you get to see a lot of unique flavor combinations. I think Asian fusion definitely is coming in where you might have a different sauce and spice angle than you typically would think of for pizza, but delicious.
Yeah, I saw a brand not too long ago, Masala Pizza. I think it was out of Chicago or out of somewhere in the Midwest that it was all Indian themed pizzas.
One of my favorites to make is a palak paneer pizza at home. And so I use palak paneer and a little bit of low moisture mozzarella on top and some caramelized onions, and it's absolutely delicious. It's one of my favorites.
Love it. So we had one question about can we share, would you be willing to share the presentation with our members after this?
Yes, of course.
Wonderful. So I just wanted to answer that question. We'll have a couple other questions here. We'll send them out to Stephanie. If she has time, she'll answer them for everybody, but we're running close on time. So Stephanie, thank you so much.
Thank you, Christopher. Again, I enjoyed every minute of it. Love talking pizza anytime. And please, if you see me at the conference, definitely come up, say hi, and we can talk pizza as much as you would like.
Yeah, everyone's going to see you on the first opening general session, just so everybody knows. I'm truly looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to having a lot of pizza with you too while we're out in Las Vegas. So thank you so much for taking the time. I'm looking forward to seeing you again sometime soon.
Thanks, Christopher.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy pizza.
Thank you. So also want to do a special thank you to our webinar sponsor, Fontanini. Please be on the lookout for the survey that you're to receive in a day or so, which you'll need to complete to earn your continuing education hours. We hope you'll join us tomorrow, March 13th, as Kevin Walker, Certified Master Chef, American Academy of Chefs, hosts an in-depth webinar on the new Certified Master Chef exam. And you don't want to miss out on the next webinar on the Trend Series, April 2nd, with Chef Russell Scott, Certified Master Chef, where he begins our discussion on April's trend, electric kitchens. We also invite you to register for our 2025 ACF National Convention, where you can hear more about Stephanie Swan and our other trend experts. This event is filled with some of the tons of education presentations, networking opportunities, and delicious meals, so we hope to see you there. To learn more about the upcoming webinars in the ACF National Convention, visit acfchefs.org and click on the Events tab. On behalf of the ACF National Office, thank you again and to bring this opportunity to us, Stephanie, and thank you all for joining us today. I hope you all have a great day.